Do you love vampires and werewolves? Do you feel like the whole vampire versus werewolves drama would have been interesting to watch if the main protagonist we were following was a bit more badass and less helpless? Well, may I present to you Underworld, the one vampire werewolf storyline where you have a badass female protagonist who's whooping ass left, right, and center. And who can forget that iconic scene of our girl Seline shooting through the floor? Well, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that this roller coaster of a franchise introduced us to several strong, absolutely brutal characters. In today's video, we'll discuss our picks of the strongest characters of the franchise. So, put on your trench coats, get your silver nitrate bullets, and let's get down to business. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Starting the list with the most menacing villain of the franchise, Victor. Now, if you'd said to me at any point before watching the movie that the Underworld would be a movie where I'd see Bill Nighy shirtless for a good while as he scoffs and makes grumpy noises while looking extremely decrepit and also happens to be one of the strongest characters of the movie, I wouldn't have believed you. However, such is life. And Bill Nighy gave me the chills when he finally showed his true colors. In the first movie, we learn that Victor is a vampire elder who's hibernating and isn't meant to be awakened until 2103. However, his hibernation is cut short when Seline decides to wake him ahead of time because she figured out Craven, one of the members of the vampire coven, had made a deal with Lucian, the Lycan head. Obviously furious with her complete disregard towards the ways of the coven, Victor asks Seline to be judged. But as we progress through the story, we realize that he's more upset with her for having a relationship with Michael Corvin, who's very obviously a Lycan. And why is he so upset with his surrogate daughter, who turned into a vampire years ago, for having a romantic interest in a Lycan? Well, as we find out in the prequel movie titled Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, Victor had a daughter named Sonia, but Sonia ended up getting into a relationship with a Lycan and was expecting a hybrid child, which is a big no-no. Victor had to be the one to judge her, and he condemned his daughter to be burnt alive in the sunlight, while Lucian had to watch his lover burn, unable to do anything. Lucian eventually broke free, got into a fight with Victor and escaped after stabbing the elder through his mouth. While Victor did survive this attack, this marked the beginning of the long-drawn war between Lycans and vampires. This is only the tip of the iceberg of what Victor has done over the years. As we go through the franchise, we learn that Victor was the super ruthless Hungarian warlord. He ruled his domain with an iron fist. No one dared to go against him because of his military expertise. Because of this military expertise, Marcus Corvinus, the original and the first ever vampire, approached Victor on his deathbed. In exchange for immortality, all Victor had to do was use his military troops and keep the werewolves in check, created by the first ever werewolf and Marcus's twin brother, William. Victor, once turned, decided to build up his own army of super efficient werewolf killers known as the Death Dealers, which obviously gave him quite a powerful position in the coven. Finally, in 12012 AD, Victor tracked William. Now, Marcus didn't want to harm William, and Victor knew that. So instead, using the third elder vampire named Amelia, he dealt with William while he sort of took all the powers Marcus had over the coven with his huge army and following. With the entire power in his hand, Victor tasked a man to build a dungeon for William in a faraway fortress. The fortress could only be opened with two keys, one smaller one, which he gifted to Sonia, and the bigger one, which he kept on himself at all times. William was locked away, and with Victor's influence, Marcus was absolutely helpless and couldn't save his brother. To ensure that Marcus never got to save his brother, Victor conspired with the other elders to create this system known as the Chain. According to this, only one elder would be awake at one time, and the other two would be in hibernation, effectively ensuring that Marcus never got his hands on Victor's key without waking him up. With Marcus out of the picture, Victor created his very own domesticated werewolves, which we know as the Lycans. He used them as watchdogs to protect the castle in the daytime. When Lucian and Sonia's relationship came to light, Victor noticed that Sonia had given Lucian the key that Victor gave to her. He definitely didn't want Lucian to figure out what that key was or how to open the dungeon, because if William came out, it could be bad news for Victor. So when Lucian ran away after stabbing him through the mouth, Victor sent Craven after him. Craven told him that he'd killed Lucian when, in reality, he didn't. But Victor didn't know that. He thought that Lucian was gone and decided that no one who knew of the dungeon should be alive. So he went after the family of the man he'd hired to build the dungeon and slaughtered them like cattle. In the midst of his killing spree, he stumbled across Seline, the 19-year-old daughter of the man, and she reminded Victor of Sonia a lot. So he decides to spare her life and accept her as his surrogate daughter, turning her into a vampire and feeding her lies that Lycans killed her family. So now, after so many years, when he saw that in 2003 his new daughter was doing the same thing that Sonia did years ago, Victor was livid. But when Seline returned with the proof of her claims that yes, Lucian was alive and Craven was trying to create a hybrid by mixing the blood of two species, Victor was apologetic. He sets out on a mission to kill the Lycans. During this attack, Michael was hit with a silver nitrate bullet and he was on the verge of death, so Seline bit him in the hopes her vampire strain would save him. Right then, Victor showed up on the scene and saw the very obvious betrayal from his daughter 2.0. Victor was super mad. He went after Michael, beating him up, completely unaware that Craven was in the lair. While Seline was recovering from the hits from Victor, Craven, who knew of Victor's past, told Seline what he'd done. After learning the truth, Seline was livid and went after Victor. While Victor tried to tell her that he gave her a gift and whatnot, Seline wasn't buying it. Seeing that he couldn't reason with her, he went after Michael, who had run away, while Seline confronted Victor. When Victor comes across him, Michael is already a full hybrid and is far stronger. But as Michael had no combat experience, despite his strength, Victor was able to gain the upper hand easily. Before he can finish the job, however, with some insane wire work, Seline jumps and slides her sword through Victor's face, killing him for good. Although Victor's no pure-born vampire, he's obsessed with the purity of bloodlines. He's willing to do everything if it means the vampires will reign supreme. He thought of Lycans as nothing but animals and slaves, which was a thought shared by most vampires, although not as extreme as Victor. As he was so focused on purity, he found the thought of hybrids abhorrent and considered them an abomination. He even lied about being a pure-born vampire just so that he could excuse his cruel actions because of blood purity. He was a power-hungry mongrel who was willing to turn the vampire history books to sing his praises, ensuring everyone thought of him as the first and most powerful vampire. He's arrogant, and he's extremely cruel and ruthless towards anyone who opposes the rule he and the Coven decided on. Totally not something that we've seen happen in real life over the years, right? Despite his loving relationship with Seline and Sonia, being a good father doesn't nullify his horrible actions towards everyone around him, even if they belong to the Vampire Coven. Anyone who disobeyed him immediately became his enemy, and he was more than happy to take dirty measures to remove them. While it's true that he did end up dying at the hands of his protege, let's be real, Victor is the strongest because of the way he got himself the manpower using his cunning and immoral ideals without even triggering a bit of suspicion from anyone. Lucian, the leader of the Lycan resistance and the progenitor of Lycans, is truly a harrowing character to watch on screen. The way his resilience and mental strength helped him survive all the bad things is definitely something worth praising, and Michael Sheen gave an amazing performance as Lucian. As we find out in Underworld, Rise of Lycans, before Lucian, there were no Lycans. The aristocratic vampires had domesticated a bunch of werewolves and used them as slaves in their fortress. However, in the 13th century, one of the enslaved werewolves gave birth to what looked like a human child. Victor wanted to kill the child, but his curiosity was more than his bloodlust. This boy was Lucian, and when Victor learned that he could shift between a werewolf and a human, Victor decided to use the boy for his benefit. For the next 200 years, Victor would capture humans and force Lucian to infect them with the werewolf strain in his blood, turning them into Lycans. As these Lycans were humans, they were far more docile than the otherwise unruly werewolves, so the vampire masters replaced the werewolves in the castle with the Lycans. Lucian never quite hated Victor or the vampires. Victor treated him like he was a prized possession, and all Lucian cared about was to go against the feral nature found commonly in other Lycans. However, all things changed when Lucian and Sonia met. They immediately fell in love and even wed in secret. As this matrimony was hated by both sides, the couple often ran into trouble, and Lucian, like the most green flag guy in the history of all guys ever, defended Sonia at the cost of his life. You'd think Victor would be happy that his daughter had a lover who was willing to go above and beyond, right? Wrong. Instead, he's harsh on Lucian. He beats up Lucian when he learns that Lucian took off his collar, completely disregarding that Lucian did so to save Sonia from feral werewolves. Sonia finds out that she's pregnant, and Lucian is done with his life of servitude. So together, they try to run away, but they end up getting caught. Victor bit Sonia, and from her blood, he learned of their affair. Enraged, he killed Sonia by exposing her to sunlight while Lucian had to watch. Having the love of his life taken away from him while he's helpless is something that would ruin any man, and Lucian was no different. He set out on a path of vengeance to win against Victor. Lucian wanted to be a hybrid, which is only possible if he uses the blood of a descendant of the Corvinus bloodline. That led him to corner Michael and bite him, getting some of his blood in his mouth. By using the resident mad scientist Singe, Lucian figured that yes, Michael does have the Corvinus strain, and now, to be a hybrid, he first has to get enough of Michael's blood. So off he went to chase Seline and Michael down, and he actually ended up cornering the duo and getting Michael's blood in his system. The next step was to get Amelia, the third elder's blood, which also became easy thanks to Craven's treachery. However, before Reyes, Lucian's loyal friend, could return with the blood he drained from Amelia, the attack of the Lycan lair took place. Craven, being being the bad guy he is, shoots Lucian with silver nitrate bullets, laying him off to die. When Lucian regained consciousness, he saw Michael and Seline, Victor's adopted daughter, and realized that history was repeating itself. So he realizes that he doesn't need to fight this war because this couple will do everything that he intended to do in the first place. When he saw Michael dying, Lucian was the one who told her to bite him, which eventually turned Michael into a hybrid, saving him. Lucian died happy, knowing his wife and his unborn son were avenged. Other than the strength to simply extract bullets from himself with what seems to be a deep breath and survive several strenuous physical activities without missing a beat or slipping a disc, what makes Lucian so strong is his resilient and goal-focused mindset. He loved Sonia, and he was willing to put his life at risk if it meant Victor's ego would be hurt. Victor killed Sonia for the sake of vampire purity and whatnot, and Lucian's goal of creating a hybrid is the biggest trump card against Victor, because once a hybrid is created, it'd show that perhaps vampires are not as superior as they thought they were. I think that takes a lot of strength to pull off. Seline, created after the X-Men character named the same, Seline is our main protagonist of the franchise. Kate Beckinsale went all out in her performance, and it's such a treat seeing Seline navigate the world and politics around her. Seline was born in 1383, and her father was a well-reputed architect. He was tasked with building a fortress for Victor, which was the dungeon where William Corvinus was locked away. As a child, Seline roamed through the halls of this building quite a bit. Now, when Victor assumed power in the Vampire Coven, he went ahead and tied up all loose ends about the location of the dungeon. But he didn't kill Seline because of her resemblance with Sonia. He fed her this story where a bunch of wild Lycans had killed her family, and Seline, full of vengeance, decided to never stop until she killed them all. She became one of the most promising death dealers in her entire coven. While she was well regarded by everyone because of her talents and mercenary skills, it was very evident that Seline was not very social. She was consumed with the grief of losing her family, especially her two young nieces, which haunted her for a long time. To survive and feel like she was doing something worthwhile with her given immortal life, she went after Lycans over and over again. The more you see her character, you can understand that she's so focused on her goal to kill all Lycans that somewhere she forgot she was a human and her emotions. However, everything changed when she and Michael met. It was clear that Michael brought out some human feelings in her heart which were long forgotten by Seline and led her to go against her duty to protect the guy. She's extremely headstrong and stubborn to a fault. She does whatever she thinks is right, even if it puts her life in danger, because she'd rather die doing something she believes in instead of second-guessing. She's extremely protective of her loved ones, which acts as her main driving force. She killed Lycans for a better part of 1,000 years because she knew they killed her family. When she figured out it was Victor, the man she considered her father, she didn't hesitate to slice through his face. When in Underworld Evolution, Michael is seemingly killed in the hands of Marcus, we see just how Seline snaps after a while. She literally gears up to go on a suicide mission, ready to face both Marcus and William if it means she would avenge her lover. The next time she meets Marcus and gets in a fight with him, the Elder pierces through her chest with his talon, but this time Seline doesn't stay pinned. She grabs it, snaps it, and drives it straight through his skull, throwing him off her and into the spinning blades of a helicopter. No matter how campy the scene looks, it's genuinely such a get him girl moment. She gets this power up because she drank the blood of Alexander Corvinus, who is the true immortal, which made our already super strong protagonist even stronger by making her immune to sunlight. The entire plot of Underworld Awakening is about our bestie girl going after and against the operation named Antigen, who had taken out her daughter to study her body and create antidotes against vampire and Lycans. The way Seline plows through dozens and dozens of men in this movie just to get to her daughter is so exciting to watch. While we talk a lot about dad's strength, Seline represents the lesser-known mom's strength, and we appreciate that. Marcus Corvinus, played by the lovely Tony Curran. Marcus is one of the three sons of Alexander and Helena. He inherited the Corvinus strain from his father, which, when activated, turned his father immortal. Knowing that, Marcus was pretty sure nothing would ever happen to him or his brother. However, due to unexpected circumstances, William became a werewolf after being bitten by a rabid wolf, and Marcus became a vampire when he was bitten by a rabid bat. William became kinda crazy and went on a rampage, killing a lot of people. So, to stop his brother, Marcus asked for Victor's help. He even turned Amelia so that she could help them too. Victor launched the Vampire-Werewolf War, and some 800 years later, William was found. Victor, Amelia, and the Death Dealers severely injured William. Marcus couldn't bear this thought as he was quite close to him and pleaded for his brother's safety. However, he was betrayed, and Amelia and Victor locked William away. Seeing this, Marcus swore to avenge his brother, but the cards were not on his side. At the end of the first Underworld movie, we see that the blood of the Lycan scientist Singe had seeped through the cracks of the floor and awakened Marcus, turning him into a Lycan vampire hybrid like Michael. The moment he woke up, he went on on a crazed rampage, killing everyone in the coven who was loyal to Victor. When he learned that Victor and Amelia were dead too, he couldn't be happier. He wanted to save his brother William, and he went after Seline to get the keys and the location. He kills Michael when he realizes that he's the only thing between him and Seline, and after drinking her blood, he pays a visit to his father. Alexander didn't think Lycans or vampires should rule the world, and Marcus wasn't happy about it. He felt like his father had abandoned his brother, and after severely injuring Alexander, he went off to find William to begin a new race of hybrids like him. He does save William, but the rejoicing is cut short because Seline and Alexander's troops show up. The following fight is brutal because we know just how strong Hybris can be. Especially with his wings and talons, Marcus is extremely adept at surprise attacks. However, when he saw his brother die, he was stunned with grief and shock, which Seline used to her advantage and killed the crazed hybrid elder in one go. Marcus is truly a formidable foe because of his hybrid physiology and obsessed emotions. Some emotions tend to make us do things we never thought we could do. Marcus is just filled with those emotions. Alexander Corvinus. Starting off life as a Hungarian nobleman, Alexander had to watch his whole village ravaged by a plague in the 5th century. However, Alexander survived because of a rare genetic mutation that allowed him to adapt to the virus known as the Corvinus strain. This turned him immortal. He eventually married Helena and had 3 sons. Marcus and William ended up getting his mutation in the dominant state, turning them immortal while his other son was born mortal. After William's unfortunate encounter with a mountain wolf, he became a raging, uncontrollable monster and went on a rampage. Alexander tried his best to control his son, but it was too much. On the other hand, Marcus ended up becoming a vampire after being bitten by a bat. He went and asked for help from a Hungarian warlord to control William, which we all know about. While all of this was happening, Alexander was cooped up with a military force of his own. He knew the vampire-Lycan wars had just begun, and he needed to save the mortal realm from the damages of this war and William's plague. So, instead of joining the conflict, his people were like the cleanup crew that removed any remnants of vampires and Lycans after wars to ensure the mortal realm remained unaware of their existence. Because of this uninvolvement, when William was captured, Marcus felt his father was to blame, for if he'd done something, William wouldn't have been imprisoned. Eventually, Seline and Michael show up at his doorstep, asking for help to destroy Marcus. However, Alexander couldn't do it because, in the end, they were his boys. Since Alexander's people were the ones who cleaned up Victor's body, Alexander had the half of Victor's key. But Alexander refused to give it to Marcus when he showed up. This led to Marcus going on an enraged rampage and stabbed his father grievously before escaping with the key. When Seline showed up, Alexander asked her to drink his blood, which ended up aiding her in her last fight against the hybrid Marcus, as now she too was a hybrid. She was a vampire Corvinus strain hybrid, which increased her existing abilities as well as gave her immunity to sunlight. Because of Alexander's demise, in the next movie, Underworld Awakening, we learned that the mortal realm figured out Lycans and vampires existed, and now both races were hunted to near extinction. Given that Alexander is the strongest and the first ever immortal, we can clearly understand that if he wanted to, he could have stopped his son. He could have healed himself, but he made no effort to do so because he didn't want to be the one to murder his sons and chose to die. Owing to his great age, Alexander was extremely disciplined and mentally strong. He was also immune to all types of diseases and aging for the most part, as his body lasted him more than 1700 years. In my eyes, what makes Derek Jacobi's Alexander so strong is just how he held himself through the turbulent past and did what was right. He stood by and watched as a hunt was carried out for his son, and instead of going out of his way to protect him, Alexander chose to protect both of his sons and their legacy by going above and beyond to keep their existence a secret from the whole world. William Corvinus. William was born in the 5th century. Like his brother Marcus, he inherited his father's Corvinus strain, which in its active form turned him immortal. One night, the two brothers decided to go out on a ride in the Carpathian Mountains. On this ride, they were attacked by a big, rabid wolf. Marcus was attacked first, and his horse panicked, putting him in more danger. This pushed William to throw himself in between his brother and the wolf to save Marcus. While William managed to kill the wolf, he was bitten in the wrist. While Marcus took his brother to a nearby inn and got his wounds checked out, it was too late. The Corvinus strain reacted with rabies and the wolf DNA at the bite site and combined with it to turn William into the first werewolf. As a true werewolf, William was unable to change back into the human form. His virus was so potent that it was able to change victims post-mortem. This led to a huge plague which pushed Marcus to eventually get help capturing him. Now, Victor wanted to kill William straight away, but Marcus fed Victor a lie that if anyone with Corvinus strain died, then so would the rest, which led to William being trapped away for years in the dungeon built by Seline's father. Rabies had already turned him quite crazy, and when you add years of solitary confinement to that, It's a recipe for disaster. When Marcus opened the dungeon, William recognized his scent and eventually calmed down. Before Marcus could turn William into a hybrid like him, Seline and Alexander's troops showed up. Despite his years of confinement and starvation, and by years I mean 800 years, William sliced and bit through the cleaners, Alexander's troops, with ease. Even Seline had a hard time against him because of just how overwhelmingly powerful William was in strength and speed. That's when, surprise, Michael comes into the picture. Turns out he didn't die when Marcus gutted him, and he managed to follow Seline back to this dungeon. Michael and William fight. Despite the sheer strength of a hybrid, even Michael struggled to keep up with William. After getting used like a wrecking ball for a while, Michael eventually gained the upper hand and ripped apart William's head with his bare hands. As the first of his kind, William truly is the strongest of the werewolves, and one of the strongest in the whole mythos of Underworld. He's far stronger than his descendants we've seen so far. He has greater stamina and greater endurance, and nothing, not starvation or a machine gun, could stop his rampage. While we've seen Lycans heal quite a bit throughout the franchise, no one healed as quickly as William did. Despite having no sustenance, William's healing ability didn't take a toll. William fought for this long because a lot of his wounds actually healed mid-fight. How crazy is that? Samira. Introduced in Underworld Blood Wars, Lara Pulver's Samira is the main antagonist. See, she was turned by Victor at some point before 1402, and she used to be a part of his coven. But when the vampires lost Castle Corvinus and Seline was turned, Samira was sent to the Nordic coven while Victor and Seline became a part of the Eastern coven. Samira, inherently destructive and bloodthirsty, didn't like the Nordic coven and their peaceful ways. We also learned that before Seline, Samira was Victor's regent, and she didn't like that Seline had taken her place. But Victor was still her loyal sire. That's why when Seline returns in this movie, Samira betrays her as revenge for killing Victor. Using her death dealer Varga, Samira planned to have Seline drained after paralyzing her with Nightshade. Even though David, Amelia's son, managed to save Seline from being bled dry, Samira had just enough blood that was enough to transform her into a Corvinus-strain vampire like Seline was. Samira originally planned on becoming the Corvinus-strain vampire, getting rid of the Eastern Coven members who favored Seline, and of course, Seline herself. However, this plan got messed up when David showed up and declared his parentage. Varga too betrayed Samira and joined David, so Samira became pretty desperate. When Marius, the Lycan leader, attacked the coven with his troops, as Samira killed his lover Alexia, Samira used that as a distraction and tried to murder the pure-born vampire. Thanks to the Corvinus strain, Samira is able to match David and his powers beat for beat. Her years of combat also helped her gain the upper hand. In the last moment, hoping to save himself, David used a blade to shatter the shutters, letting sunlight in. Samira enjoys the rays of the sun on her skin after decades of not being near it, and this gets her distracted, just enough for David to kill Samira the way she killed his father. Even though she did fall, Samira is a strong antagonist because of just how ambitious and fierce she is. She's willing to get her hands dirty, and her desire to be at the top is what drives her the most. However, this desire for power is what ends up becoming her undoing because she gets distracted by her ability to daywalk. Marveling at her newfound powers, David landed the killing blow right then. Eve Corvin, daughter of Seline and Michael Corvin, is the firstborn hybrid in the whole mythos. Her parents were captured by the Infected Persons Unit, and when Antigen learned that Seline was pregnant, they raised Eve as Subject 2 in captivity while Seline was comatose for 12 years. Eve was lied to by the people who take care of her, and she never knew anything about herself until Seline woke up. After being treated like an experiment by everyone around her, when Eve heard she was going to be executed, she lashed out, escaped, and eventually broke out with her mother. From the first scene, you can understand just how strong Eve's character truly is. She's barely 12 years old, maybe 13 at max, and despite this young age, she's able to go through men like they're nothing. As she's a hybrid, the full extent of her powers isn't known. Genetically speaking, she's the most potent of the immortals, as she has only the powerful attributes of each species. Like her father, Eve is ferocious and bloodthirsty once she enters her true nature. Her healing factor is far greater than the rest. Even though she never had blood before, the moment she got blood, her wounds healed instantly. Her endurance is remarkable for her age, and despite being thrown under cars or hit by Lycans, Eve not only manages to stand, but also fight. She has sharp claws like her father, and her senses are extremely strong, which helps her be agile and dexterous and synchronize her attacks. She can always make her brainwaves fall in line with her parents and see what her parents are seeing and hear what they're hearing. And as for Eve, neither silver nor UV can stop her. India Isley truly went all out, portraying this young hybrid who might just be stronger than her mother. Reyes. Reza here, Kemsi, is one of Lucian's most loyal followers and is second in command since the first rebellion against Victor. Reyes was born in Sudan, the son of a mighty sultan, but he was captured by Saracen invaders. Even as a human, he was extremely strong and formidable, which kept him alive. Eventually, he was given to the coven run by Victor as a tribute. Lucian and Reyes met when Lucian showed up to save Sonia. Although just a human at the time, Reyes went all out to help Lucian, which made him his close friend. After Sonia was killed, Reyes gathered all the Lycans to help Lucian in his revenge. Since then, Reyes has never left his side. Reyes helped Lucian track down Michael Corvin, who might have the Corvinus strain. He consistently takes part in Lucian's plans as his bodyguard, and Reyes is the one who leads the ambush on Amelia and the Vampire Council. However, he never manages to get the blood to Lucian, as when he returns to the lair, Lucian seems dead. Reyes went into his rage mode, transformed into a werewolf, and while he fed on the corpse of Soren, the vampire who helped him lead the ambush on Amelia, he sensed the presence of Victor. Victor bought Reyes as a human and transformed him into a Lycan, which definitely warrants a lot of hate. Reyes attacked Victor, but despite his big size and sheer brutality, the Elder managed to snap his neck with just a single swipe and sank his sword into Reyes' body, killing him. Kevin Grievous's screen presence will draw your eyes to Reyes whenever he's on screen, and rightfully so. Being a 680-year-old Lycan, Reyes has abilities that go far beyond these modern Lycans. He can change into his wolf form at will, whichever time of the day it may be. His healing speed is quite enhanced. I mean, he literally chats while having giant shurikens jammed in his pecs. Despite his big stature, which makes him extremely powerful, Reyes is also extremely quick on his feet, making him an extremely strong ally to have. Plus, his weapons proficiency is just a cherry on top. David, as I've mentioned, is the son of Amelia, the third Elder, and Thomas, another vampire of the Coven. We see him in Underworld Awakening, where he joins hands with Seline after noticing Seline interrogate and kill an antigen scientist. They end up saving Eve from the Lycans, and while they drive to the North Coven, they witness the strength of the young girl. Then we find out that she is Seline's daughter, Eve, and despite his father saying that Seline is the reason why vampires are in such a bad state, David doesn't leave her side. That night, the Coven is attacked by Lycans, and David is murdered. Lucky for him, Seline cuts him open and gives her blood on his heart, turning him just like her. Together, they mow through the antigen people and save Eve from getting tortured. In the next movie, Underworld Blood Wars, David comes in clutch in the end by defeating Samira, the main antagonist of this movie. Theo James put his soul in David, and it's evident. There's no denying that as a pure-born vampire, David was already strong, but now with the Corvinus strain, he's even stronger. While he may not be as strong as Seline, it's evident that it's because of his lack of military experience and not because of a lack of his abilities. He's already a strong ally and has the potential to be an even stronger one over the years. Marvelous verdict. So there you have it, guys. While there were so many characters we could have picked, we decided that maybe we should give them and Michael a rest for this video and focus more on the main vampires and Lycans we come across in the series. Let us know if you'd like a video on Michael and his powers and who you think is the strongest out of this list. I'll catch you next time, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.